thank you for the organizers. And I do think that basically what the facility managers and our association, respective association in your countries are doing is not only a support, but really a strategic partnership that eventually can bring into the new level of quality of services that you and us in general provide to the end users and customers. The announcements I was about to begin with is that we are lacking one of our colleagues, the gentleman from Turkey, Mr. Hakan Ismet, who unfortunately won't be able to make it, but all the materials, the presentation and information about his activities and company will be available on the website of the conference and BGSCLAD. Let them get used to that. So we'll start with our colleague from Romania. He'll have the floor for the conference and then for the presentation, and then we'll have probably an opportunity for several quick questions before we move to the next panelist, because he'll have to drive back to Bucharest today. And as you know it, we are still expecting the highway Hemus. Yes. So it might take him 5, 6 or 7 hours, depending on the motivation of the rest of the traffic. So you have the floor, and we probably use it for a few introductory sentences for yourself and your company, and then we can switch to the general content.
Thank you very much. May I? Yeah. Thank you very much. Just as a way of introduction, my name is Marian Orzu. I represent Dunwell Industrial Brokerage. It's an independent brokerage company in Romania specialized in transacting industrial properties. So the things which I would want to share with you today are related to the market in Romania and how it evolved from last year, for instance, to this year. Initially, I had a presentation, but seeing the presentation, the very nice videos that were already presented here, I thought that maybe it would be good to share with you also a report which we've done as a video. And then I will go with a very short, brief information about the market. And if you have any other questions, I'm here to respond. So it's a 3-minute video, shouldn't be. It's also in.
Hey, we're Dunwell, the first and strongest industrial real estate agency in Romania. Check out our review of 2018's market and find out what to expect in 2019. Connecting the dots to 2020 shows 3 emerging trends. E-commerce and inner-city logistics continue to gain ground. New developers, local and international, have joined the competition, and exploring new locations has become a must. Supply growth went up by 30%, which takes us to a total of roughly 3.5 million square meters by the end of 2018. Market leader CTP advanced with 60% of all new supply, while WDP was #1 in terms of new pre-leases. P3 also announced their second industrial park near the A1 highway in the northwestern part of the Ring Road. VGP and Zakaria were active as well in the regional cities of Timișoara, Brașov, Sibiu and Craiova. Bucharest stays in the top when it comes to new deliveries, followed by south central and western submarkets, Pitești, Timișoara, Sibiu, Craiova, Ploiești and Brașov. Due to the improved infrastructure of the Ring Road, new tenants were driven to the northern part of Bucharest, where the connection to the A3 highway was finalized. Demand came close to 0.7 million square meters in 2018, where only 22% were renewals and renegotiations, most transactions being closed for new premises. 24% of the total number of transactions were sealed by logistics companies, the demand being concentrated in Bucharest, 60%, with Timișoara coming in second and Deva third. Retailers represent 42% of all market transactions, while EMAG decided to build its own 120,000 square meter premises. 2018 closed with a 5% vacancy in Bucharest and only slightly higher in the rest of the country. Average headline rent in Bucharest stands at €4 per square meter and €3.8 per square meter in the regional cities. Competitive rent levels, more flexibility or incentives are expected to characterize the 2019 leasing market. The supply could expand by an additional 750,000 square meters in 2019, almost half being under construction at the beginning of the year, while over a third of the surface area is located in Bucharest, where major A-class projects are about to rise from new developers such as MLP Group, Element Industrial or Global Vision. We are likely to witness new projects appearing in Craiova, Constanța, Buzău, Bacău and even Iași, as we expect to see more activity in these places in the following years. Want to know more about the Romanian industrial real estate market? Visit our website and check out our detailed analysis for a more in-depth view.
So, why I wanted to start with this is because this was done at the beginning of the year. I believe in March we've done this video, and it kind of comprises what happened in 2018 and what we were expecting for 2019. Now we're almost at the end of 2019, so I can give you some sort of a snapshot of what happened this year. So, what happened last year in terms of take-up? In Romania, there were around 700,000 square meters transacted last year. This year, on the other hand, there will be close to 500,000. So we would define this usually as a decrease. The market slowed down maybe, but the reason why last year there were a lot of transactions, let's say we signed almost to 700,000 square meters, was because there were some movements of the big retailers which opened big distribution centers in Bucharest. Most of them in North Bucharest, yeah? So, yes. Okay, great. Thank you. See? Technology, 2019, man. Come on. So, this is from the first 3 quarters, as it says over there, it's approximately 500,000 square meters transacted. I think by the year end we'll be, and here hopefully Costin, which is my, let's say, not competitor, friend in the market. We're splitting the market quite nicely. I think it will reach somewhere around 600,000 square meters by year end. Again, this I would not define this as a decrease in the market, but I would define this as a normal way because of last year being somehow exceptionally rather than a rule. So. What's here is somehow the distribution of transactions, industrial transactions in Romania. Most of the market, it happens in Bucharest. Let's say the stock in Romania is close to 4 million square meters. Yeah, built Class A storage space or production space. Now, of course, most of it, half of it, 2 million square meters, are built in Bucharest. And somehow that's why we see over here that 30% of the transactions which have been closed from the beginning of the year until now have been in the rest of the country, and the 70% in Bucharest. The fact that 30% were direct and 70% through agencies, I don't know exactly how much relevance does this have at this place right now. This is an important thing which I always like to point out, and I think this applies as well in Bulgaria. I all the time consider the industrial market as kind of being the one. This morning I think there was a gentleman which was defining it as the engine of the economy, if you want. If we would take the whole real estate market and we would divide it by each sector. Yeah, you have the office, you have the retail, you have residential, and you have industrial. The first 3 commercial real estate parts, which are office, retail, and residential, these are quite visible, something that you see every day. You pass by it, by office building, by residential developments, and of course by shopping malls, because you kind of interact with them daily. Whereas the industrial market is not necessarily so visible, because usually this is outside the city, it's on the highways, it depends a lot of infrastructure and so on and so forth. But the thing is that the industrial market is the one which offers the image of how an economy grows. Yeah. So coming back to this slide, because this is important. Yeah. I mean the left part. From the 330,000 square meters, or what I was reporting in the first slide, 80% of this was warehousing and 20% production this year. How does that translate in our daily life? Is the fact that basically we're growing economy through consumption and not through added value of services. Yeah. We were discussing this morning and in the panel with the agencies, the colleagues expressed here about the fact that in Bulgaria is also the fact that kind of the economy grows based on consumption and not necessarily on production, yeah? And this is a very, very good indicator of that, yeah? Because if you would to split the occupiers of industrial spaces, you have production, yeah, production companies which take the space. Then you have retailers, maybe the ones which are really directly affected by the consumption, and usually they do storage. And you have the third-party logistic operator, the service providers, which are again linked to storage. So coming back to my main idea, the fact that in Romania, 20% of the transaction closed up until the Q3 of this year are production, and 80% of it are let's say, warehousing. This is a signal that it's an economy driven by consumption and not necessarily a very healthy growth from my personal point of view. Now, coming back a bit, skipping my personal ideas. So, how did Bucharest evolve in terms of new projects? As we were reporting at the beginning, we were reporting that there will be a lot of inner city logistics projects, which actually happened. We have projects announced in northeast Bucharest, in north Bucharest, which are inside the ring road, which can offer somehow the solution for requirements inside the city. Now, in the country, we've seen Craiova, which is the southeast somehow of Romania, southwest, sorry. And Craiova is the one which has the production of Ford. So Ford has a huge production facility over there. Recently, there are more and more developers going that direction to cover somehow the supplier park of Ford. Then you have Moldova part, which is northeast part of Romania, which developed, but also consumption-driven, not necessarily production. So you have a lot of requirements coming from this side. Now, I'll take this opportunity to discuss a bit about the infrastructure. I think in Bulgaria, you have the same issues as we have. Industrial market is driven mainly by infrastructure. Wherever you will see laid down highway, immediately you will see pop-up of warehouses, yeah, because that's how it works. Now in Romania, we don't have a lot of highways. We do. I don't know exactly the number of kilometers. I think it's 1,000 maybe, roughly 1,000 kilometers of highways, which is suboptimal from my point of view. But there is one crossing somehow, trying to connect Bucharest or Constanța to Budapest. And Transylvania has been the one to benefit out of this. So in that way, the market kind of grew, the industrial market grew in this direction, whereas the northeast part of Romania, which is on the, let's say, right side of the mountains, this has not been yet connected to Bucharest, and this sees a lot of underdevelopment in industrial space because of the lack of infrastructure. I'll pass this. This is with regards to the land. Now, the pricing in the lands can vary, of course, according to the location and according to surface which you need, and also the infrastructure which is available at the area. Now, we've done transaction at 25 euro per square meter for industrial space, but of land. We've done transaction of 60 euro per square meter for land. So most of it depends according to the area. If there is an interest specifically about a certain area, I can share with you. But what I've seen here in Sofia is that the prices kind of vary in this direction as well. I mean, you also have from 20 maybe to 60 euro per square meter, depending on the proximity to the city. The closer you are to the city and to infrastructure, the higher the price. Sometimes this is prohibitive for industrial development. This is another discussion. In terms of rents, yes, we've seen even high pressure on the rents in Bucharest in the last year, and this year actually, because there has been high availability in Bucharest. Now, in the movie, the presentation movie, what we saw, we mentioned over there that one of the largest online retailers has built its own facility, which means around 120,000 square meters. How does that translate into the market? Is that he will vacate rented space from P3 in this case, which is the developer present in Romania with a lot of space. So him together with, EMAG and other two players have decided last year to build their own buildings, which is close to 200,000 square meters, and they will create availability in time. And that's why we see right now some sort of a pressure on the prices. We have seen even a decrease below €3 per square meter on the net effective for rent, but also the rent as usual depends on the surface you rent and how lengthy how long the contract is. So in this case, let's say for under 5,000 square meters, you'll find prices between 4 to 4.5 on the base, whereas for between 5 to whatever, let's say 10,000 square, 20,000 square meters, you'll get closer to €3 per square meter. And yeah, thank you very much.
So I'm from Colliers, and I'm interested in how you cooperate with the governmental agencies there in Romania when an investor is to be attracted to the country.
From my personal point of view, I avoid them as much as possible. That's because sometimes as you do, we sometimes do some sort of a country pitch. Yeah, there is a certain player which wants to enter into the Romanian market or some market, be that Bulgaria or Romania, and they do the country pitch. And we contribute with the information as you do here in Bulgaria, with the real estate information. Then you have the human resources and a lot of it. And I must confess that all the time prefer to keep this as private as possible in dealing with that investor rather than involving the state. Because usually that's where it all breaks down. Let's take the Volkswagen example, the recent Volkswagen example, and you were mentioning it in your presentation this morning. I think Bulgaria has very, very high chances in getting this deal now that it falls from Turkey. Yeah. So to answer briefly the question, not ideal, let's say, into communicating and participating with the state, which is sad for me. I would love them to be involved.
I was really interested to understand whether there are some measures in forward in this direction from your side, but
I'm not the one to tell you.
Sorry to hear that.
We do have a lot of representatives which will tell you what they do, but usually they put the land and infrastructure available, and that's that.
Okay, thank you.
One thing which I wanted to mention, because according to your presentation, you're mentioning today that because of not having a lot of developers, let's say institutional developers here in Bulgaria, companies and usually automotive producers, they go and build their own facility. This has happened in Romania as well, and the effect of this on a long term is that at some point in time, because the companies do not want to invest necessarily into their building, they want to put their money into production, not into the real estate. This will generate a very nice market for sale and leasebacks. Because yes, developers, they're looking to, but on one hand you have the end users which want to get the equity and the cash out of the building, and developers which want to have long lease term.
Yeah, definitely this is a niche.
So for automotive, I will see that as an opportunity here.
Thank you.
If you allow me just to add a couple of comments on that. You see, Daniela, in Romania they tend to change their government quite often, and that's why sad. You don't have to build that much of a tension or relationship. We have a totally different problem here.
You can share that with me, but you're right. The government is due to be changed this week. They had a motion with they basically put down the government, which is a good thing.
Yes. Anyone other question? I have a question, if you don't mind. Yeah. Okay. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, the geographical spread that you've mentioned? I've seen the pricing and the rent levels in the capital and the rest of the country are getting quite close to each other, which was not always the case in that part of the continent. But with Moldova on the horizon and the few potential projects up there northeast, is it based on the potential European Union and non-European Union trans-border market enlargements and stuff, or is just underdeveloped market that Romania is a country or a market developed in the last few years?
Well, in terms of pricing, the prices on industrial never really differed according to the area, because you had the same prices in Bucharest what you would have maybe in Timișoara, let's say west of the country. The construction prices are the same, the land prices are roughly the same, so it wouldn't make any sense to go lower on the prices. With regards to northeast part of Romania, it's not necessarily at the border with Moldova or closeness to the Russian, but over there it's Iași. Iași is a city it's a big university city, and it grew quite significantly. And I can give you a perfect example of how infrastructure influences a market. Iași, for instance, opened and transformed the airport into an international airport. Yeah. So in this case, you have flights to Tel Aviv, to Rome, to Italy, everywhere from Iași. How did that translate into the market is the fact that you have the office market, which grew significantly. I mean, the office market boomed over there. Yeah, you have Amazon with 6,000 square meters. You have a lot of players, Continental, R&D departments, because you have an university city, and then you have the labor force. Now, if you transform this if you want to put this to industrial, the equivalent of an airport for industrial, it's a highway. You put a highway over there, and you're going to have the area boom, yeah, in terms of industrial, because again, you have labor force and you have everything which you need. Now, I think 100% this applies to Bulgaria as well. Bulgaria and Romania, they're very similar in terms of markets.
Oh, you're very kind.
Anytime, sure.
No, I would have loved to have an example like Iași in our own hands. We are struggling to actually get a new airport in the capital city, yet alone talking about elsewhere. But you're quite right. I don't know how much of your time we will be able to take. You're getting used to it. Okay, fine. Questions from the audience related to Romanian market? Gentlemen, do you want to? No? It was quite impressive presentation.
Thank you very much.
You have to congratulate your marketing department. That's the easiest way to absorb a lot of information through a video with a narrative and a music behind. But where do you think the Romanian market is heading in the next couple of years? There is a general talk in the financial markets that upcoming crisis is on the horizon. Especially in the fintech industries and in banking, they are talking about that. And the recent development in Romania was actually in a contradictory way to what they are saying. Do you expect Romania to keep it steady as it is right now, or there will be an influence from the international players? We obviously
of course
have a lot
it will
of them.
be, because for instance we have also a lot of automotive suppliers, yeah, and so industrial-wise the market is very exposed. Maybe it's a hard word to use, but it is exposed towards the automotive market, and then usually and mostly the German automotive market, which is, I was just reading an article this morning that I think the German automotive market kind of decreased in the past year, and that's why what I was saying, we don't see a lot of requirements as we saw in the past from the production side. Yeah. Coming back to your question, I think that everybody wants to be the announcer of the crisis hero, yeah, because last time there was just one, Rubini maybe, and now everybody has this on their tongue, and it's I prefer to say, and I believe that it will be a certain correction. Crisis is a very hard word to use. Crisis means,
we're used to crisis, so it doesn't scare us.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying we in Eastern Europe, we are crisis. We have crisis today.
No problem.
So I think that there will be a correction. We see a lot of residential going through the roof. I think this is happening the same in Sofia, and this usually it's an indicator. I used to be at the conference at some point in time, and I saw this guy, an American guy, which said, "I have that." He was an old guy, and he saying that, "Look, I've been through crisis, through 3 or 4 downturns of the economy, and." He said that I tried to build some sort of a system to predict that what's going to happen, and he came up with a 3 W's system, which is watches, wings, and wheels. So, you see, so he was referring basically, because it was a brokers event, he was referring to the brokers. When you see the brokers, with new watches, only private planes, and new cars, just start saving money, because things might happen. So I don't know. In Romania, I kind of see brokers doing well.
We can apply that to if you switch brokers to bankers, and we can
Or bankers,
be okay.
service providers.
Okay, that would be easier for us to absorb.
Consultant.
Okay. If you don't mind, we'll start with the rest of the and of course we'll have Costin here to back you up if there are some other questions related to the Romanian market or the general the area. And thank you very much, Marian.
Thank you
was a
for
pleasure meeting you.
it was an honor for me. Thank you.
Enjoy your trip back home, and
Thank
you'll
you.
be always welcome back, right?
Sure. Thank you very much
Okay.
for the invitation.
Now we'll switch to Vladan, right? Okay. You have the floor for a presentation, or you can speak. Okay, very good.
I'm here with the great support from my colleagues, Mr. Zoran Petrovic and guys from the legal department and financial department that might be interested when it comes to questions, as this guy has huge experience with our clients, having in mind that we have 25 production companies which operate in our free zone and around 100 trade companies which use our warehouses services. So I would go now through the presentation. So next slide, please. So free zone period. These are basic facts. Free zone is a fenced territory. Free zone period is a fenced territory of the Republic of Serbia when you can operate under certain incentives. And we cover area of 140 hectares. We had 25 production plants, 120 trade companies in which are employed 6,000 employees. So, free zone period, you can have there all incentives offered by the state, by the local government, by our services. We are not just ordinary free zone which is engaged for attraction of investors. We also have our services. We have our freight forwarding department which provide spediterske services. Also we have organization of transport. We have our warehouses. And that is something what differs us from other free zones which providing conventional services of classic, let's say, agency for development of the region. So, some about state incentives. You can absorb state incentives for the development of the region, like state subsidies and grants and so on. So you can operate in free zone, VAT excluded. Also you have on energy sources like electricity, gas, fuel, oil and coal. You don't have to pay VAT in customs on machinery and parts. No custom duties and VAT for imported raw materials. Also you have zero taxes regarding the development of the documentation for construction of objects in our free zone. As I talked before, we have also our services which we provide here. And we consider that we had good logistics services as we have all, let's say, all departments which considering paperwork for export-import in free zone, including customs office. That helps us to provide efficient service regarding the paperwork. Also, we are doing, starting from this year, shipment of containers. But also starting from this year, handling of empty containers in free zone. That's why we want to develop this project. That's a regional intermodal logistics center. It's comprised of two components. One is an intermodal terminal and the second one is infrastructure land, 35 hectares of land for production and warehouses facilities. I can say that 50% of this land is also completed with the companies. These are manufacturing users in free zone period. These marked are from Bulgaria. So I know whether you see some of them are from the clothing industry, some are producing cigarette tubes, wood industry, and so on. This is the turnover of our companies in free zone. That was the data for 2018. So these are photos of our users just to see what they are doing. So we locate, as you see, we reconstructed some warehouses, facilities for this kind of productions. Emirolio is one of Bulgarian companies which operate in free zone Pirot. Also, we are not experts from the, let's say, market of warehouses and industrial land, but we will show you our case as we have this land and the warehouses. You can find this data on the databases which are available on internet, and you can use search engine to check available facilities, their prices, and so on. So I checked some, so the prices are, as you know, different depending on the location and the structure of facilities, connection to the infrastructure, and so on. So also you have a national database for these industrial facilities. This is Development Agency of Serbia database, and also you can use this search engine to filter and to find exactly what you need for warehouses and so on. You can find brownfield and greenfield investments locations and so on. And this is the price list of our warehouse, and the price is €3 per square meter. May be interesting to say. Also, the goods which are located in our warehouses has a status of a customs warehouse, so you don't pay any VAT on customs on goods till the moment it's placed on the local market. Also, it is important that we care about our clients. So, and they have support from our departments. And we provide them all logistics services, so they can, for example, production companies which are located, focus on their core business, and we want to do all logistics and paperwork for them. And that's why, you know, we are, let's say, attractive, not so big location, but let's say attractive, and our warehouses are almost full, and we are trying to develop more space for our new clients. So that would be the presentation from the perspective of free zone and warehouses in the free zone Pirot.
Thank you. You can probably take the seat if you don't mind. We will leave the questions for the end of the panel discussion, if you don't mind. If anyone has something urgent, okay, you have one or two questions for you as well.
Ja sam pomoć na gospodin Stojanović. Ja sam gospodin Petrović, no moj bulgarski idva do Plovdiv, a anglijski do letište Sofia. Te kada sam dal prednost na gospodin Stojanović da бъде тая презентация. Ако mogu da pomognem с некои odgovori, разположен съм. Мерси.
Много благодарим. Okay, so Nikos, it's your turn.
Okay.
I could.
Even if I had a presentation after Marian presentation, I will delete it. Yes.
Come on,
it was great.
You're too modest.
I don't have presentation. I deleted it.
Okay, sorry for the disturbance. I just wanted to have that picture that you're on the
the
microphone.
previews.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
They use you as a
Yes, I need
as
my
a
rights.
celebrity.
Yes. So, let's speak about Greece. You know, after many years of strong crisis in Greece, everybody hears about crisis in Greece. 9 years. 9 years was very tough. Hopefully, after these 9 years, we saw real estate market to increase. In some parts of real estate, residential properties in the city centers was extremely high. We saw this drop of the values, this drop of transaction, the 9 years before, to change in 1 year. In one year, we went higher than before crisis. And especially to the rent prices, we are higher than the year before crisis in city centers, Athens, Thessaloniki, and in touristic destinations. But what happened with the industrial properties? Industrial properties and warehouses are still underwater. During the last 2 years, I had several projects with 4 of the 5 banks in Greece, with either with our REO properties from loans returned to the banks, either distressed properties, giving opinion about values to the fund who wants to buy the loans, the mortgages. So I travel all around Greece. I did more than 800 opinions about mostly industrial properties. And after these 2 years, I understand that at least 40% of properties are distressed and underwater. That means that if you walk around Greece and you see industrial or warehouse properties, 40% the owners own more money than the value of the property. So banks starting cleaning their portfolios, trying to sell the loans to the fund, and the fund trying to manage the assets. And we see, because of the lack of funding from the banks, still the funding of the banks are very low. We don't have many new constructions, but we see a lot of growth in industrial production. So it's a need for properties, but they cannot build new the business, the companies with funding from the banks. That increase the price of the rents without increasing the price of the properties. So the capital rates in industrial properties is 10 to 12%. Land of opportunity for developers. Yes. Because there are many companies which go very down during the crisis and now going well, but they cannot afford to paying the loan in so high monthly payments. And they want to get rid of their properties to give it. So banks or the fund got the mortgages, collaborate with the owners in order to sell the mortgage, to sell the property to a fund or to a new investor, and after that, the user, the old owner, to continue rent the property. And we have also very big investments in our ports, you know, Piraeus port, Thessaloniki ports, privatized, and we have a lot of investments there. And we are waiting what happens in the residential market to happen also in industrial and warehouse, because after so many years without constructions and with a change of the market, of the retail market, completely changed with e-commerce, with a big market outside the city. There is a big need of new construction, new warehouse, and nothing happened. I'm sure that this will be, this vacuum will increase in the near future, prices also in industrial and warehouses property, but needs a different view, needs innovation procedures, new architecture, needs a lot of ideas in order to change the old buildings, because there are a lot of old buildings. We don't know what to do with them. So, you know, changing the market, we have to change our minds also in order to cover the demand.
That's interesting perspective. But can you tell us a little bit more? Are there any international newcomers to the market? Those properties that are eventually put up on sale, beside the ports, is there any trend in increased interest in the market?
I don't think it's trend.
Okay.
There are some transactions, but we see mostly sole investors or some funds involved in this.
Are they international or local?
International investor mostly went through funds buying mortgages, invest in this procedure, yet because there are the big profits. But there are some points of investments. This is not the main market.
And how long do you think that market conditions will stay on? Do you see any changes in the next couple of years?
I'm
banking
waiting
sector?
something very rapidly.
Okay.
Because when distressed funds join the market and buying the loans, they want to do this very quick. They invest in something and they want to clear their portfolio in 3-5 years. They don't keep the mortgages. So also this procedure help banks to give new loans. So I'm waiting next 3 years to change dramatically, like the residential market, because it is a vacuum. It is a strong need in the market.
One last question from me before we give the floor to the audience. I know that you are quite experienced in the region and you travel a lot to Bulgaria as well. Just not only on the industrial sector in general, but how do you see development of Greece and Bulgaria trade cooperation in the real estate sector? Is there any opportunity to changing production facilities as we used to do in the past, shifting from north to south? I know your specialty is the northern Greece, and we are quite closer.
Many of the northern Greece industrial companies moved to Bulgaria thanks to the tax system. So new government changed this condition. We have a high decrease of the tax in Greece, and we have also big changes in zoning rules, in construction rules for outside the city plans. I think this, I'm sure that this will stop companies going out. This is the first what I am waiting. I don't think Greece is the country for industrial properties. But for warehouses, I'm waiting big demand. Due to the collaboration with China and the port of Piraeus, we need a lot of million of square meters for cover this demand.
Okay. Any questions from the audience for the gentleman, or you leave it to the end? Okay. So thank you. It was quite interesting. I do have a couple of questions, but we'll get to that a bit later. And Evgeny Numerov, you the last with
Thank
your
you, Nikos.
always interesting presentation.
Nikos, it's good when you go to Greece, you want to be underwater because it's hot. Yes. So it doesn't surprises me that industrial is under the water. So, let me first just ask you a couple questions. How many of you, and raise your hand, how many of you have bought something online for the last month?
Who does it?
Raise your hand if you've bought something online. Okay. How many of you received what you bought the first day you made the order? None of you. One hand. Okay. In 2 days? No hand. Few. 3 days? 4 days? Okay. Thank you. You're still waiting. Okay. Today, I during the conference, I read some news on one Russian website. They said that one American company, they're going to build a hotel in a space, in cosmos, in 2025. This hotel will be able to host 400 people per week. So in 2025, not really far away. So it seems like, and it's not a joke, it seems like a fairy tale, something that we won't believe. So today I'm going to discuss and tell you something a little bit about, my topic is warehouses are growing up. They're growing up because of a few reasons. And before we get to my presentation, let's watch a little video about warehouses that are multi-floor, for example, in your neighboring market in Turkey. So please put the video. I'll make a couple comments. It's a little one, it's not a big one.
Многоэтажный производственно-складской комплекс в Стамбуле, состоящий из 2 зданий на одном участке.
So it's two buildings on one existing plot, and it's a
Проект
multi-floor.
рассчитан на производственные компании с возможностью организации хранения
So
готовой
you have
продукции.
entrances
Комплекс
on each
отвечает
floor,
всем требованиям промышленных компаний.
and you have a separate entrance on each floor because it's an angle plot.
Общая площадь пятиэтажных зданий 200 тысяч
So
квадратных
it's
метров.
200,000 square meters on 5 floors.
Здание спроектировано с учетом сетки колонн. Колонн 9 на 10 метров. и
So the
рабочей
column
высотой от пола до
space is
потолка
9
от
to
7
10
до 10
meters, and the height is from 7 to 10, depending on the floor. The clear height of the building, of the floor. And these are, it's not just one warehouse. When I was at this spot, I could see another buildings that are total 1 million in multi-floor.
Заезд организован без строительства.
So there are no
равных
ramp
с использованием перепада
because of the
участка.
angle. So you just enter from the ground to each floor, and you drive
Каждое
in
помещение
inside of the
оборудовано
building.
автоматическими воротами, высота которых 4,7 метра. Данная
So there are
высота
blocks on the
позволяет
left and the
пуле
right
заехать в
side
помещение.
from 1,000 square meter to up to 25. This project is mostly occupied by production companies,
Имеет ширину 13 метров.
and the
В
width
конце
is
каждого
13
этажа
meters.
есть разворотная площадка.
There's a turn that the trucks can go inside and they can
Производственные
turn back.
помещения от 400 до 25 тысяч квадратных метров. Две фуры могут разъехаться, даже
Even
если
two
по бокам
trucks
блоков
can go
напротив
through
будут припаркованы
with the
легковые
parked
автомобили.
cars on each side. This allows two trucks to go through.
Нагрузка на пол на цокольном этаже 40 тонн
So
на
the
квадратный
first floor,
На
the
остальных
loading
этажах
capacity is
4
40
тонны
tons per
квадратных.
meter because it's 6-7 floors. Yeah, you can stop it. So we understand what is this. Yes, it's okay. There's they're parking on the last floor on the roof. So from this point, from this building, I could see 7-8 other multi-floor warehouses. Total 1 million just in one point in Istanbul. So think about this. It's not something that the hotel in space. Yes, it's a reality. And it's when I was starting gathering information about different markets. Can you start the PowerPoint? When I started gathering information from all the markets a year ago, I thought that it's a fairy tale, that it's something that the Asia has, China, but never, not Russia, not Europe, and I will say that it's not a trend, it's evolution. We're going to the next level. Here's the clicker, yeah? It's not working? It's working? No? Oh, okay. So the main driver, the cities are growing. So the big cities are growing, and the population in 2050, there will be, what is the number? You can see 63% of the world population will live in the big cities. So the cities are getting more important, the big cities. And actually operating through the second floor is already happening in a one-floor warehouse. We call it mezzanine. It's not something new for us. A lot of so it's a mezzanine floor where you operate. A lot of some companies do use mezzanine, some don't, but it's not new for us. This few months ago at the MIPIM, we discussed with all big companies like P3 and others that this is the biggest trend in logistics, the city logistics. And when we talk about city logistics, it's expensive land, and you need to go up. The warehouses have to grow up. Here's some what pushes this market is fast delivery. When you buy clothes, food, whatever online, you want it to be delivered the same day. For example, in Russia, we have a biggest retailer that sells clothes. It's a fashion retailer. It's the biggest companies, like Amazon, you know, it's one of the biggest companies. And they said, if a woman buys something online, clothes, and it won't be delivered the same day, next day, maybe 60 to 70% they will cancel the order because it's very emotional, and they order, they bring it to your house, you pay, boom, it's closed. So the fast delivery, this is a huge market. In Europe, it's 3 up to 5 billion euros, and it's growing every year. So developers and tenants, they're fighting for this market, and this pushes developers to build these facilities. And we've made some of the responders said that they're ready to pay 72%, ready to pay more for fast delivery. They're ready to pay, so they get it today. Some people, if they don't see that there is a delivery, when you have it online, six retailers that can where you can buy a certain thing, and there's only one can deliver it the same day. Everybody chooses the same day delivery. So that's the thing that pushes this market. Okay? So there are, what's the difference in between one-story or many-story or multi-floor buildings? We have ramp. Ramp is pretty expensive. So this is the ramp. This is no ramp. This is, for example, a multi-temperature warehouse in Russia, and this is in London. But ramps are expensive, so developers want to avoid building ramps. But if you have an angle, like I showed you in Turkey, it might work well. So there are warehouses with ramps, without ramps, through the elevators. A lot of users and tenants, they don't like elevators because that's the slowest, and it could be broken, and it slows the process of getting in and out. So this is the building that is used, like you see when there's an angle, it's perfect. You have entrance to the building from each floor. So Asia, of course, is where it started multi-floor, and you can see that they have, for example, 22 floors, and they have ramps going up to, for example, 10th or 14th floor, and then the other floors, upper floors, without ramp, they have elevators. But for example, in Japan, the construction cost for the warehouse, the warehouse is 85, 90%, and the land is only 10, 15%. Or, I mean, no, vice versa. The land is 85, 90, and then the construction cost. So we cannot compare. Our markets are not comparable. But anyway, we studied the other markets, the Asian markets, and all the markets. And you can see, for example, this is in China. There were production facilities, one floor. They made it reconstruction. They put a ramp in between. So even old buildings could be reconstructed into multi-floor. There's some, so the amount of floors, the clear height, and this is how big can be the footprint. For example, for big box in Bulgaria, I think it's 50-50, right? You can build on 1 hectare 5,000. In this case, you can build 90% the footprint, yeah? So the e-commerce created a new demand for this kind of facilities. And this is also, but there are some other, I would say, for example, this project is a multi-floor, but it's not a warehouse, it's a auto mall. It's also interesting project because you can see shops and warehouse, shops in front and warehouse on the back and a parking. So there, I would say there are some interesting concepts and buildings that allows you to use when in a multi-floor. So these multi-floor buildings, they of course need to have infrastructure, catering, restaurants, cafe. Some buildings have fitness centers, so it's becoming more like a city-oriented buildings. Some developers are trying to do it speculatively, not for the client, because they say, okay, we want to have, before we start construction, we want to have client committed by rent, by lease, or to buy. But some companies already understand the demand and they start to build speculative. For example, this company in Gazeli. Prologis already built. Prologis has 53 multi-floor warehouses in the world. So it's probably one of the biggest developers and companies that understands better multi-floor than anybody else. So the major rule is that if the land cost around 50% of the construction cost, you have to go up. So that's the rule. Here's you can compare the land prices. For example, it's a land price per square meter. You can see that in some countries it's even much lower, and still they have a lot of multi-floor warehouses. So the land prices that are right now in Moscow, they allow us to do it, because it makes no sense to do it one floor. No way, because you're not going to get your return back in whatever is investor is expecting. I go faster, some I skip because we don't have much time, but I would like to say that these are some C-class buildings that we have right now and there are plenty of these in Sofia, I bet also, right? So buildings that were built in 30s and 40s and 60s. So this is how it looks now in Moscow. And these are some, so in Moscow, inside of the ring, you have also ring around the, yes, so inside of the ring, there are probably 200,000 of A-class modern warehouses. And outside, it's 15 million. So think about this. Inside, 200. Outside. In Moscow, we call it Moscow, not city, Moscow region. It's the city with neighboring. So it's 15 million. So it's important. The JLL had made a report that in Australia, logistic companies, when they looked at the expenses and the cost of in operation of logistic companies, they realized that 50% of all the operating cost is transport. And only 4 to 7% is the rental payment for the place where they rent and operate. So it makes sense for a lot of companies to reduce the cost, because when you order something that is 30 kilometers away from the city border, you cannot deliver the same day. So we're getting back. If you want to deliver the same day, you need to have facility inside of the Moscow. So when I started this study, we had no modern warehouses, even projects. There were none. And right now there are 3. One of them is built. 1 month ago, I was visiting that warehouse. When you on the second floor, you don't understand that you're on the second floor, because there are trucks coming, and it's like the normal warehouse. It's no difference. So because of I call it cannibalization of industrial land. So this fish is residential. This is shopping centers. This is offices. And this is warehouses. So, because the city doesn't understand, the city government doesn't understand that warehouses it's a need infrastructure, element of infrastructure in the city. In other big megapolises like London and others, they've sold a lot of land for residential, shopping centers, and only now they understand how foolish they were, because there's no land for warehouses. And for example, Amazon rents in New York office building for warehouse. So, but it's a trend all over the world. And also CBRE says that the warehouses that are built in year 2000, last 15 years, they are not comfortable for e-commerce tenants. So they are not reflecting what the e-commerce wants. I think that's it. Just one last thing I want to mention, because there's too much information. But for example, in the year 2000, this is Hong Kong and other markets. In year 2010, there were only 30% in China, only 30% of the new coming buildings were multi-floor. Today, in 2019, 80%. So 80% of the new coming projects with the buildings are multi-floor. And for example, right now in Moscow, in Russia, we are looking at million population cities. Not only Moscow, but even million population cities. We're looking to buy land inside of the city to make it to build a multi-floor. So right now we have 3 projects on the way. Each project, the volume of investment around $100 million, just to get a view. So it's not, and it's for our developers. It's an experiment. You know, they haven't built it, they haven't done it.
But sorry for interruption. Just to make clear, you have 3 projects that are multi-level warehouses.
Yes, right now 3 projects. 3 projects. One of them already built. It's a 2-floor building, and it's already rented to. It's 100,000 square meter, 2 floors, and it's rented to one tenant. And 2 another one. Each will be one building is 2 floor, another one 4 floor. Total area, the GLA is 100,000 square meters, and the third project is 3 floors. On each floor, 36,000. So it's pretty. For example, when I showed you that video, you saw those 2 buildings that are 200,000 in total. They occupy a land plot 7 hectares. If you want to have 200,000, you need 40 hectares land if you do it in 1 floor. Okay, so thank you for your attention. You're the strongest people because you left here. And if you come to visit Moscow, let us know. We will show you multi-floor buildings. Thank you.
Have a seat. Questions, please.
Yes, I have a question. How is the building regulation? Because in Greece it's not easy to build so high buildings in industrial areas. Is it a special regulation? It's for each plot in Russia?
No, we have no any special regulations. I know that there's some special regulation about this in Germany, and we discussed it on the panel in MIPIM in Cannes last MIPIM. They said that they need to get some additional approvals from local authorities to do it, and it takes more time and money. That's why they are building actually even 1-floor buildings under 11 meters, because when they build it 12 meters, they go through another circle of regulations. So in Moscow, no. In Turkey, when I was in Turkey, I've been 20 years in real estate and 10 years doing industrial, and when I saw these buildings, it's like I was on another planet. Like for 2 days, I had shock. And they built it 10 years ago. There are buildings that occupied by DHL in 3 floors that were built in 2007, etc. So it's not something that is, you know, in cosmos that in 2025 maybe some of you will fly to this hotel, maybe not. So we don't know, but it's not a fairy tale, it's reality. And as soon as the tenants will start demanding, this product will appear on the market because developers have to provide what the tenant wants.
Do you have any idea about those existing old industrial facilities that are still existing in the urban areas? What will be approximate ratio between refurbishing them making them into multi-level warehouses, or completely demolishing and building a new?
It's hard to say because you
In
need
Moscow.
to see the structure of the building, and usually they have column spacing pretty like 6 to 6 or 4 to 4, and e-commerce tenants, they don't like this column spacing. So we do have some projects where we do like ramp but not for the trucks, for smaller cars. But mainly it's a new build. It's for this concept is mainly for the new build buildings.
Okay. Prosi, questions? I just want to ask a question that I wanted to ask Vladan in the beginning about the incentives. So is Piros a specific case, or there is some unification between the offers? You have some own incentives that are
There are
implied.
3 levels of incentives in our free zone. The first one is state level incentive, which is applied in all free zone, actually to all territory of the Republic of Serbia. The second one are local municipality incentives, which are applied to certain municipalities. And they are related mostly to taxes for the construction of buildings. They release companies from taxes for buildings. And there is incentives by the free zone law, we mentioned in the presentation. So production, no VAT, no custom duties, also for the warehousing. And also we have our services, which makes our free zone unique in sense that all the companies in our free zone has a package of all services, so they can care just about their core business. We do all paperwork related export, import, loading, unloading goods, and so on. So that's maybe specific for our zone.
The whole package looks quite impressive, and I was wondering whether you are standing out from the rest of the country and everybody else is competing with you, or that is just pretty much a standard offer to everyone?
Yes. So all these incentives can be applied in other free zones. So,
but
no problem.
Are they applied?
Yeah, some of them are applying. Some of them are not. More or less, they are applying. But you know, I think that services are something what differs us from other free zones in Serbia.
It looks like that from the presentation,
Yes,
especially.
yes.
Thank you. Quite impressive.
You're welcome.
Thank you, gentlemen, for the patience and perseverance. It was an interesting site and opportunity to have a glimpse on the local markets. I do believe all of you will be here for at least a few more minutes if somebody from the audience wants to have a word and exchange name cards and stuff. And I want to thank the organizers for having us at the last panel, and Mr. Mite for his stamina.
Много благодаря на всички. С това приключихме. Пожелавам на всички приятен ден и много благодаря. Аплодисменти за всички.